So today's lesson is very similar to yesterday, except today we are going to be subtracting across zeros. So this means that in your problems today, you're going to have to borrow from a zero. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So just like always when we add or subtract, we're always going to start in the ones place. So in this problem, we are subtracting 5,100 minus 3,520. So I'm going to start in the ones place. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 2. I can't do that, so I need to go over and I need to borrow from the 1. So because it only has 1, I'm going to take away that 1, and that's going to become a 0. And I'm going to add a 1 to this 0 to make it a 10. So now that it's a 10, I can actually subtract that. So 10 minus 2 is 8. And now I have 0 minus 5. So I need to borrow again and go over to the 5 in the thousands place, borrow 1. It's going to become a 4. And then I'm going to add the 1 that I borrowed from over here to this to make it a 10. You could just add the 1, or you could cross it out completely and just write the 10 up here too. So now I have 10 minus 5, which is 5, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So my answer is 1,580. I had to borrow twice because I'm subtracting across zeros. Because I took 1 away from this 1, it became a 0, and then I wasn't able to do 0 minus 5, so it became, I had to borrow again from the 4. So we can double check our answer just to make sure that we did it right. I'm going to add this 1,580 to my problem and add it to 3,520. And when I add it that way, they already have the answer down here, but I'm going to show you how it works. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 2 is 10. So they went ahead and wrote the 0 down here, but we're going to carry the 1 and go up here. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus that extra 1 is 11. So again, they wrote the 1. We need to carry the other 1. Then we've got 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. So because when we add these two numbers together, we get the top number, we can know that our answer is correct. So 1,580. On the next problem, we are going to do the same thing, but we've got zeros within that top number. So it's going to be a little bit different on how we actually subtract this. So we're going to start over here. 0 minus 7, we can't do that. So automatically we need to go over to this 9 and borrow. So we're going to cross out that 9. It's going to become an 8. And then we're going to add that 1 over to this 0. It's going to become a 10. So now 10 minus 7 is 3. 8 minus 7 is 1. There's no need to go over and borrow again because 8 is bigger than 7. I can just subtract it. 8 minus 7 is 1. 0 minus 9, I can't do that, so I need to go and borrow from this. Oh wait, that's 0 too. So I need to actually do a double borrow and skip this 0 and go over to this 3 and borrow 1 from it. So I'm going to cross out that 3. It's going to become a 2. And then I can't automatically just jump over to this 0 and make it a 10 because I'm going to still have to borrow from here. So actually, before I skip this number, I'm actually going to cross it out. And it's going to become a 9. I'm going to give a little bit to that one, and then this 0 is actually going to become a 10. So 10 minus 9 is 1. I can still do this one. 9 minus 2 is 7. So my answer should be 7,113. I'll write that down here. 7,113. That's going to be the trickiest part of it. Whenever you are subtracting across 2 or 3 or 4 zeros, you have to make sure that you can't just skip to the non-zero digit and go to the one that you were trying to subtract. You have to give a 9 to make those zeros a 9 to all the ones in between. So on this one, this will be a good one, 2003 minus 1154. Because, again, like every other assignment this week, the slides are big enough on the computer for you to do your work on Seesaw, or if you want to transfer it, you can just transfer it over to a different piece of paper, do all your work, and then put the answer on Seesaw. So I'm going to show you one last time how to transfer to both grid paper and lined paper. So I'm going to start with the lined paper, and I've got 2003 minus 1154. 2003. And by now you guys should know that my favorite trick is to write that bottom number backwards. That way it gets lined up properly. So I'm going to start with the 4 in the ones column. 5, 1, 1. Subtract it. So automatically I can see that I can't subtract 3 minus 4. So I need to go next door and borrow, but that's a 0, so I can't borrow from that. I need to keep going. Well, that's a 0 too. I can't borrow from that one either. I have to go all the way to this 2 to borrow 1 from it. But I can't just hop right back to this 3 in the ones place, because when I get to these numbers, I'm going to have to borrow again anyways, but I already borrowed. So before I go all the way back to the 3, I'm just going to give a little bit to this 0, give a little bit to this 0, and then be able to make this 3 a 13. So I'm going to make this 0 a 9, and I'm also going to make this 0 a 9. They don't become full 10s because you're giving that full 10 to the 13, or to this 3 to make it a 13. So all the zeros in between, they become 9s, and then you add the final 10 to this 1, which is a 13. So now that I have 13, I can subtract 13 minus 4, which is 9. Because I made that 0, I already borrowed and made it a 9, I can subtract 9 minus 5 is 4. 9 minus 1 is 8. And 1 minus 1 is 0. But because that is the first digit, I don't have to write that 0, so my answer is just 849. I'll come over here. This problem just shows me that my answer only has 3 digits, which is a good indicator that I did the problem correctly. But I could always double check my work and take my 849 and add 1,154, and then it should add up to this 2003. When I add 9 plus 4, I get 13. Carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, and then plus 5 is 10. Put the 0 down here, carry the 1. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus another 1 is 10. Again, put the 0 down, carry the 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. So because it equals 2003, I know that I did that correctly. So my answer is 849. And then if you have grid paper, here is how you can do it on grid paper. So on this one, I've got 8,000 minus 3,502. 2, 0, 5, 3. Subtract. So I can't subtract 0 minus 2, so I need to go next door. That's 0, 2. The next one's a 0, so I have to go all the way to this 8 in the thousands place, borrow from it, and then sprinkle some along in these middle ones to make this one a 10 in the end. So I'm going to take one away, that becomes a 7. This 0 is going to become a 9, and this one's also going to become a 9, and then this final one becomes a 10. So 10 goes all the way to the ones column, everything in between becomes a 9. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 0 is 9. 9 minus 5 is 4. And then 7 minus 3 is also 4. So I get 4,498. That is my answer. Because I did all my work on the scratch piece of paper, I don't need to go and do all my work here because I already showed you how to do it. So when you do your work today, a couple of things to keep in mind. Just like everything else this week, always start in the ones column when you start to subtract. Always remember that you need to start there and then also work your way down. The whole point of this lesson is to practice subtracting across zeros and borrowing from digits, maybe like two place values more than what you need, and being able to change those middle zeros to nines and then change that very last one to a 10. That's the whole skill that we're working on. So that's what you should look for in your problems. You should have to borrow at least twice in your problem in order for it to, because a lot of your problems are going to have multiple zeros for you to do it. So make sure that you always give a 10 to the one that you're trying to subtract. Always start in the ones column and subtract going down. And then if you transfer your work over to lined paper or grid paper or just some scratch paper, make sure that you line your numbers up exactly correctly. A great way to do that is to write that bottom number going backwards. That way you make sure it lines up perfectly.